student. Welcome to the class of operating system. We are discussing about deadlock. We have discussed what is deadlock, what are the necessary conditions for deadlock. We have already discussed about resource allocation graph, by which we can know if there is a deadlock in the system or not. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to discuss about deadlock handling. So these are the topics, those I am going to cover. Firstly, we are going to discuss about deadlock prevention, then deadlock detection, deadlock recovery, and then we are going to classify various resources. So these topics are going to be discussed today. Basically, when we are talking about handling with deadlock or dealing with deadlock, the issues we can do is deadlock prevention. Obviously, prevention is better than cure always. So the first thing we can do, we can prevent deadlock. There is another trick, that is deadlock avoidance. We are going to discuss deadlock avoidance in a different class, and then deadlock detection and deadlock recovery. So firstly, we are going to discuss about deadlock prevention. So how we can prevent deadlock? If we use a resource allocation policy, then the deadlock become impossible. Because deadlock is what? Deadlock is always occur when we want to access, that means process want to access some resources. So if the process want to access resource, and if there is a certain policy that every process have to maintain, according to the policy the resources are allocated, then deadlock never occur. So the next question comes, how to design a deadlock prevention approach? So we need to consider the conditions for deadlock, because those conditions, mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, and circular wait, all are necessary for deadlock. So if we can prevent, if we can ensure that they cannot hold simultaneously, that means if we can prevent to occur any one of the condition true, then we can prevent deadlock. So a simple policy is allocate all resources required by a process together. If we can do this, then hold and wait condition never can be satisfied, because the resources required by the process is allocated at the beginning of start. So if all assumed resources are available, then the process is going to start. So no question of further request. So hold and wait means what? A process already held some resources already with a process, that particular process, and that process is going to request for another one. So this is basically hold and wait. So if all the resources are given prior before starting the execution, then what happened? Never the process is going to wait. The process need to wait from other process. So hold and wait cannot be satisfied. But this solution is a very expensive one. Why? Because the resources the process are going to hold the process, all the resources. Then if the process is going to hold all the resources, then the process can start. Now maybe a process required a resource after 7 hours and 8 hours, but now the resources are not available, so the process cannot start its execution. And another thing also can be possible, the resource is available, the process is going to use that resource after 1 day, but the process is held with that, the resource is held with that process, so no other process can use that resource. So that is again a problem, because the resource is not in use now. Maybe the resources which is required by some other process for a little time, maybe that can be completed by 1 hour, and that previous process are not going to require that resource in 1 hour, but the resource cannot be used by the second process because the resource is already allocated to the first one. So this solution is a very expensive solution, so we cannot work with this solution. So these are some solution can be done by which we can prevent deadlock. So basically our approach is what? We want to prevent to occur, to satisfy the conditions, the necessary conditions of the deadlock. So the first condition is the mutual exclusion. So the mutual exclusion is basically what? When a resource are accessed by one process, it cannot be accessed by another one. That means the resources are non-shareable. So if it is possible to make resources shareable, then the process need not to wait for a particular resource. So if a resource which is previously non-shareable now becomes shareable, then we can do something with this condition. You can see here a resource R1. Previously this R1 resource is holding by P1 process, PJ process, and PI process is waiting for that resource. Okay, because this particular resource is non-shareable, so it cannot be shared among these two. But with this approach, if this resource become a shareable one, so you can see P1, PI and PJ both are using this. But basically this mutual exclusion is a property of the resource. So if a resource is non-shareable by nature, you cannot convert it into a shareable resource. If a resource is non-shareable by nature, you cannot convert that resource into a shareable one. So we cannot do we can do actually very little with this process. Okay. So come to the next part. Next solution. Prevent, hold and wait. That is the next condition. So if we can prevent, hold and wait, then it can be possible. So basically here we can see process PI is holding the resource RK and waiting for a resource RL. So process PI holding already have a resource and waiting for another resource. So we can do what? We can actually apply a policy that process PI is not allowed to wait for any other resource or block with the resource, any other resource when it is holding some resources. Okay. So one thing can be possible, that this is one thing. that is process PI, is not blocked with this resource. It's not waiting for this resource. It is performing with this particular resource. This is one approach. Another approach can be, this resource is not with the process PI now. So when a process is waiting for some resource, at that time, that particular process is not permitted to hold another resource. So if the process wants another resource, the process need to free all the resources it previously have. So this is basically, we can do this hold and wait. Now the thing is what? Suppose with this approach, the first approach, if we illustrate, here PI required this resource for execution. Okay, PI required this resource for this execution. So it is not very much feasible that if PI can perform all the things with this particular resource, then why PI is requesting for this resource? PI requesting for this resource is basically why? Because it's needed. PI needs this resource. For this reason, PI waiting for this resource. So it is no question that after some time, PI cannot go further with this particular resource. PI have to requesting for this resource. We cannot prevent it. Otherwise, the PI's execution is stopped at the situation. Now, if we think about this solution, PI need to free this particular resource RK when PI is requesting for RL. So RK is previously with PI. PI have performed some job. Now it is not like that always that one resource which is required for that particular process for only once. It may be after performing with this particular resource RL, again PI required this RK resource. Then again PI need to wait for this RK resource, where previously the RK resource was with PI. For an example, suppose this is a resource, this RK is a resource which is required for reading a data. And this is a resource which is required for writing or updating. So now what happened? When this RK resource is required for reading purpose, so suppose a value is read by PI, before writing always we require a reading. Okay, so suppose this value is read by PI, and now PY wants to write on that. So PY just release this resource according to the policy, and PI is going to requesting for this resource. Now after writing, again PI want to read something, otherwise PI cannot further proceed. So again it's required but reading. So again when PI is required this resource, PI need to free this resource. So PI again going to free this and waiting for this resource. And then maybe it's available or may not be it's available. Then if it is available, then again performing this, again waiting for this. So it's required a very long time. Okay. Now look at the next solution. Make resources preemptible, because the next necessary condition for deadlock was no preemption. So if we can make resource preemptive, then there will be no circular path. That means it is not like that. If we go for a no preemption scheme, then you can see here that situation is what? PI is already having this RK resource and it's required this RL resource, but RL resource is actually allocated to some other process. So until that other process voluntarily release this resource cannot go with PI. But if we go with the preemptive scheme, we can take this resource back from that another process, and it can be allocated to this. So you can see here the the two resources are allocated to PI. So with the no preemption technique, with the preemption technique, we can solve the problem like this. But think about the result of doing this. Say this RL resource is allocated to a process, say PJ, and PJ performing multiple tasks with these RJ resources. Now the system is going to snatch this RL resource from that particular process forcefully, because PJ is not going to release this resource. So what about PJ? PI is not the only process in the system, and the system should not concern about only one process. The system performance depends on the performance of each and every process. So if you think about only PI, then the performance of the system is going to be degraded, and we actually welcoming starvation like this. So maybe PJ is just going to complete, and at that time we are going to snatch the resource, the necessary resource for the PJ, and give it to another process. So PJ is going to be victimized. So that is the problem with this solution. Now coming to the next one, that is circular wait. So prevent circular wait. Here you can see a process, here a circular wait have occurred. Okay, here you can see PI and PJ are two processes, and RL and RK are two resources. PI is waiting for RK, and already RL is allocated to PI, and PJ is waiting for RL, and already RK is allocating to PJ. Now if we can restrict any one of this process, say PJ, that PJ cannot request for these resources, then we can actually remove this arrow. And if we can remove this arrow, then you can see we can break the circle. So our intention is what? Our intention to making a policy by which we can prevent PJ to request RL. So how we can do that? So if we can make the policy like this, we can break the circle, and we can also prevent circular wait. So resource ranking can be a solution of that. So basically we are going to assign a numerical ranking with every resource. Here you can see the rank is given R1, R2, R3, R4, R5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this the rank is given, and the rank is actually given like according to the requirement. Okay, suppose a reading is required earlier than writing, so reading is going to be an earlier rank. So when process PI request a resource RK with rank RK, then these are the things we need to do. If RK is less than equals to the rank of some resource already allocated to PI, then we are going to abort process PI. That means PI is previously having some resources, okay? It's previously having some resources. Maybe here you can see here the process PI having what? R1 and R3. That means the ranking is 1 and 3. Now, if PI requesting for R4, then what is the ranking of R4? It is 4. Okay. So, in that case, the RK, the small RK value is what? 4. and we need to check if it is less than equals to the rank of some resource already allocated to PI. So what are the resources are already allocated? R1 and R3. So the rank is 1 and 3. So 1 and 3 is less than equals to 4. So if 1 and 3 is less than equals to 4, then we need to do what? We need to abort. We need to abort PI. Now, the second thing we can do what? Allocate resource RK if it is available. That means if RK is not less than equals to, it is greater than. That means, say, if you think about PJ, or suppose PI is only have PI is having 1 and 2, and PI is, that is the previous case, okay. 4 is not less than equals to 1 and 3, so 4 can be, resource 4 can be allocated, okay. It is possible. Now, allocate resource RK if it is available. That means in this case, you can see in this example, PI is requesting for R5. So, R5, what is the ranking of R5? It is 5. So, the ranking of R5 is 5. So, which is greater than equals to of 1 and 3. Not greater than equals to, sorry, it is greater than of 1 and 3. So, if it is greater than 1 and 3, then R5 can be allocated to PI. It is possible. But PJ is with R5, and if PJ requesting from some resources, all are less than equals to this rank 5. So PJ is going to be above. So if the rank of that particular resource for which the process is requesting now, if the rank is less than equals to of the rank of some resources that is already allocated to that particular process, then the process is going to abort. That means if PI is requesting for R2, then PI is going to abort because 2 is less than equals to 3. 3 is already allocated with PI. But if PI is requesting for R4 and R5, then if they are available, they can be allocated. Now, if we consider of the case of PJ, because it is having the highest ranking, then you can see PJ, these are 5 resources allocated to PJ. Now the thing is what? PI is requesting for R5 and R5 is already allocated to PJ. So R5 is not available basically. So what we need to do, let process PI wait for resource RK. So PI need to wait for RK, but no problem because PJ cannot request from some other resources. Because PJ having the highest rank resource. So if PJ requests from some other resource, then PJ need to be aborted. And then only PI is going to have this R5 resource. Otherwise, PJ is not going to request some other resources. PJ is going to complete with R5 and then PI is going to have this. So anyway, PI is going to have this R5 resource, maybe now or maybe after some time. So the circle is not going to occur. So in this way, using the resource ranking policy, we can break the circular weight and we can prevent deadlock. Now suppose the deadlock prevention and deadlock avoidance, that is another way, we are going to discuss it later, are not done properly. Then what happened? The deadlock will be occur. And then we need to detect that. So that is the one thing left, that we need to detect the deadlock first and then we can go for recovery. So deadlock detection is the next thing that we can do with this. So deadlock detection can be done with wait for graph. Deadlock detection using wait for graph. Okay. WFG is basically the abbreviation of wait for graph. So the wait for graph is a directed graph used to deadlock detection in operating system. It is a extended version of resource allocation graph. Here you can see this is an example of a resource allocation graph. In this resource allocation graph, we can see what here two types of vertices are there. Process, that is represented by the circle, and resources, those are represented by the resources. So P1 is waiting for urban resource. R2 resource is already available with P1 process. R1 resource is with P2 process, and P2 is waiting for R3, which is already allocated to P5. P2 is also waiting for R4, which is already allocated to P3, and P2 is already also waiting for R5, which is allocated to P4, and P4 is waiting for R2. Now, from these resource allocation graph, if we just remove the resources, then basically what happens? P1 is basically waiting for P2. Here you can see P1 is waiting for P2. P2 is waiting for P5, P3, P3 and P4. Here you can see P2 is waiting for P5, P3 and P4. P3 is waiting for P4. P3 is waiting for P4 and P4 is waiting for P1. P4 is waiting for P1. So what we are actually doing? We are actually removing the resources from the resource allocation graph. Only the processes are there, and then basically it make a wait for graph. So from this wait for graph, we have a clear picture that which process is waiting for another which process. So from here, we can find if there is a circle or not. Here you can see, here is a circle. P1 is waiting for P2, P2 is waiting for P4, P4 is waiting for P1. So here is a circle. Now here is another circle. P2 is waiting for P3, P3 is waiting for P4. No, there is no circle. This is not a circle, but this is a big circle, you can see. P1 is waiting for P2, P2 is waiting for P3, P3 is waiting for P4 and P4 is waiting for P1. So this is another circle. So there is a circle again, and circle is going to say that if there is a deadlock, there must be a circle. Okay, cycle basically. So if we can remove the process resources from the resource allocation graph, then basically we have the wait for graph. So for this reason, it is saying that it is a extended version of resource allocation graph. So for deadlock detection, we can use wait for graph. Now the next thing comes, after detection, what we should do? If the disease is detected, we are going to take some medicine. That means we are going to recover some action from recover from the disease. So here also deadlock is a disease. It is a problem of the system. So if the deadlock is detected, we are going to do something for recovery. So what are the things we can do? We can do two things: process termination and resource preemption. Process termination. What are the things we can do? The first thing we can do about all deadlock process. So this is the very first procedure. Whenever the deadlock is detected, all the processes who are involved in that deadlock, that means who are involved in that cycle, we are going to abort all those. But in this way, all the work which is already done by the process, already executed by the process, are going to last. So this is a problem with this solution. Now another thing we can do, abort one deadlocked process at a time and check for deadlocks again. That means we are going to abort process one by one. And after aborting one process, we are going to check if the deadlock exists or not. If the deadlock exists, then it is okay. Otherwise, okay, it's basically not okay. If the deadlock exists, then again we are going to delete another process. And if deadlock not exist, then it is okay. Then we can start the procedure again. So abort one procedure means we can start the execution of the process. So abort one deadlock process at a time and check for deadlock again. So obviously we can to perform more work. Firstly, we can to about we have to detect the deadlock, and after that we are going to obviously we have to detect the process. Okay, for which process is going to delete it. So what is the good order to abort processes? Because here we are not going to take the decision for the all process. We are just going to victimize one process. Okay, so obviously we need to detect that process, which process we are going to delete first, and the second, third, like this. So obviously we have to do more work in that, and after aborting one process, again we need to check if there is again a deadlock or not. That means deadlock detection again we need to do. So more work to resolve our deadlock. Okay, so it will take more time and more work also, but it is better in terms of process work, because if one process is aborted and other processes are alive, then whatever job, whatever execution done by that all other processes, those are not going to be on wastage. Okay, so obviously better in term of process work, but we need to take care which process is going to abort first. Okay, that is the total thing is depend on that, the choosing of the process. Okay, if we choose a process which is already executed a lot of code, and then we are going to abort that process, so obviously we are going to face a lot of loss. Okay, higher priority process you cannot abort, so there are some issues like this. Now, resource preemption can be another technique that we already discussed about the no preemption strategy with deadlock prevention. So what is a good way to select a victim? Again, we need to select a victim. That means one from which process we are going to preempt that resource. So how can we roll back and then recover from the preemption? How can we protect from starvation? Because if one process is selected again and again as a victimized again and again, so obviously that process is going to starve. So these are the question we need to answer. Okay. So now we are going to discuss about the classification of systems according to resource, class, and resource request model. Okay. So here you can see single request model is one thing we can have with resource request model, and another way is multiple request model. So SR and MR. And resource instance model in this side, multiple instances, if the multiple instance is possible then MI, if single instance is possible then SI. Okay, so this is basically represent multiple instance single request, that means MI SR. So multiple instance but single request. Now this classification is actually referred to what? This group of system is what? MIMR. Multiple instance, multiple request. So multiple instance is there, instance of a particular resource, and multiple request from processes also can be served. So MIMR. Now single instance, single request. So single instance is available and single request is going to serve. This is SISR. But single instance and multiple request, that is SIMR. Okay. So these are the groups. So what is SISR system? For SISR system, the thing is what? Single instance, single request. So what are the things are there? What are the necessary and sufficient condition for a deadlock in SISR system? Firstly, we need to think about that. So what is that? A cycle in a WFG is both a necessary and a sufficient condition. If you think about an SISR system, In SISS system, only the single instance of every resources are available. So if you can detect a circle in the word for graph, then it is enough for detect. But the question is what? Is a cycle is an RRAG? That means the resource request graph basically. A resource request allocation graph is necessary and sufficient, obviously. Okay. For MIS, that means multiple instance, single resource. So the resource request, that graph must contain a node. So the subgraph G graph is a node if for every node Ni in N, all outage of Ni in G are included G. And for every path Ni to Ng in G in path. So here the detection condition is what? It must contain a node. You can see this is an example of node. Okay, here you can see there is a node. Okay. So the SIMR system, single instance multiple, a cycle is both are necessary. So whenever we are talking about single instance, then the cycle is necessary and sufficient condition for detecting. Okay. So for SIMR system also a cycle is necessary and sufficient condition. So this is basically the cycle is enough, but in this case we require a node. Okay. So if you think about the MIMR system, again we require a resource node. Okay. So here you can see there is a resource node. Okay. Then only it can be possible. So if a process is in a deadlock, practically how we need to do? We how to identify all processes that are in deadlock. Set of resources classes requested by process PI. This is what. HSK is set of process holding resources of resources class RK. KS is set of processes in resource node. And AS is auxiliary set. So PI AS, basically auxiliary set of a process node AS is equals to PI, where RRI contains RK, that means RRI, the set of resource classes requested by PI, contains RK, such as set of process holding resource of resource class RK is included or not. Okay, then only deadlock can be detected. So this is an example of processes in deadlock. So deadlock handling in practice, to limit overhead, the kernel uses different deadlock handling policies for deadlock different resources like memory. Swapping is used, hence no deadlock. For IO devices, all deadlock handling policies have weaknesses. Hence the kernel creates virtual IO devices for allocation. Okay. File, and if you talk about file and messages, deadlock handling is not implemented. And control blocks in the kernel, if you think about control blocks in the kernel, so resource ranking could be used. So these are the policies for deadlock handling in practice. So this is all about deadlock handling. In a separate class, we are going to discuss about deadlock avoidance. In this class, we have discussed about deadlock prevention, deadlock detection, and deadlock recovery. So this is all for today. So thank you, student, and be safe.